January 24, 2026. Mark this date. Someday your grandchildren might ask where you were on the day the old financial world finally cracked at the seams. We aren't just watching a correction. We aren't looking at just another bout of volatility. Right now, in these very seconds, while you and I breathe, the foundation that has held up the global economy for the last 80 years is being dismantled. Do you feel that chill? That isn't winter. That is the grave cold draft blowing off the dollar index chart. Look at the monitors. The DXY, that holy grail of American power, has been breached. It didn't just fall, it was humiliated. We crashed 0.8% in a single session, smashing through the floor at 98.61. In the currency market, where movements are measured in hundredths of a percent, this isn't a drop. It is a free fall without a parachute. It is a scream for help. But why? What compelled investors, who have fled to the dollar as a safe haven for decades, to suddenly start a mass evacuation? The answer lies on a desk at the US Department of Justice. And it reeks of treason, but not the kind you're thinking of. It is treason against common sense. For the first time in the history of the United States, a sitting Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, has become the target of criminal prosecution. Do you hear me? The head of the printing press, the man who is supposed to be untouchable, the man whose status is higher than the popes in the world of finance, is now under investigation. And do you know the official reason? You'll laugh. You'll laugh through tears, but you will laugh. He is accused of overspending on office renovations. We are told that the renovation budget for the Eccles building grew from $1.9 billion to $2.5 billion. We are told that these extra $600 million constitute the crime of the century. Seriously? In a country that prints trillions out of thin air to plug budget holes? In a country where the Pentagon loses assets worth more than the GDP of small nations, they found $600 million in cost overruns for marble and ventilation and decided to handcuff the head of the central bank for it? It is a lie. A brazen, cynical lie thrown right in our faces. The reality they are hiding from you is far more terrifying. This isn't a fight against corruption. This is a hostile takeover, a monetary coup. The White House doesn't need a building renovation. They need a system renovation. They need control. Powell became inconvenient. He played at independence for too long. He held rates too long, refusing to douse the pre-election fire with free kerosene, and the system decided to remove him. The criminal case is just a tool. It is a gun to the temple to force him out, because if Powell leaves, a loyalist will take his seat, a man who won't ask questions, a man who will hit the print button and won't let go until the dollar turns into confetti. And the market understood this instantly. Look at what is happening with silver. That isn't a growth chart. That is the EKG of the dollar system having a heart attack. In just the first 3 weeks of January 2026, silver has skyrocketed 36%. We have smashed historical highs. At one point, the price hit $95.90 per ounce. $95. Just a month ago, Wall Street analysts rolled their eyes when they heard a $50 forecast. Today we see 95. This isn't speculation. This is panic. This is flight. The smart money, the ones who run the world, are fleeing paper assets. They see that Fed independence is dead. They see the dollar has become a political bargaining chip. And they are buying up everything that has real weight. Silver today isn't a metal. It is an indicator of fear. It is the canary in the coal mine screaming so loudly that our ears are ringing. But that is only one side of the coin. While the Fed is being destroyed in Washington, a spectacle is unfolding on the international stage that could bury global trade. Greenland. You thought it was a joke? You thought Trump was just trolling Europe by offering to buy the island? Wake up. It is an ultimatum. The U.S. administration has moved from words to action. An executive order has been prepared to impose 10% tariffs on goods from 8 EU countries: Germany, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. The mechanism has been triggered. If the Greenland deal isn't signed, tariffs will hit 25% by June. This is a trade war, a full-scale, ruthless war with closest allies. Ursula von der Leyen in Davos has already called it a mistake and promised an unwavering response. But why Greenland? Why risk the collapse of NATO for an icy island? Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, let it slip. He said controlling Greenland is necessary to prevent a kinetic war. It's not about ice, it's about resources. It's about rare earth metals, uranium, and control over the Arctic. This is a battle for the resources of the future, and the U.S. is ready to go all in, even if it means the economic isolation of Europe. And here, Russia enters the game. Lavrov has already called the Greenland situation a colonial conquest of Denmark. Do you understand what is happening? The Arctic is becoming a new powder keg, and investors see it, put the puzzle together. On one side, an attack on the Fed, and the threat of endless dollar printing. On the other, a trade war with Europe and the risk of a military clash in the Arctic. The result? Sell America. Analysts are tracking a new global trend. Foreign capital is fleeing U.S. assets. They no longer believe in the safety of American bonds. They don't believe in a justice system that opens cases over office renovations. They don't believe in allies who twist arms with tariffs. And where is this money flowing? Look at the Pan American Silver Report. They mined a record 22.8 million ounces in 2025. You'd think the market would be flooded with metal? No. The market swallowed it whole and asked for seconds. Because demand from artificial intelligence and green energy is growing exponentially. Data centers need silver. Solar panels need silver. Missiles that might soon fly over the Arctic need silver too. We are witnessing a classic perfect storm. A physical metal deficit that has lasted for 5 years, a geopolitical shock tearing apart supply chains, and a crisis of trust in the dollar, provoked by the White House itself. A price of $95 isn't a bubble, it is the new reality, a reality where paper money burns in the fire of political ambition. In the next part, we will expose the mechanics of exactly how they plan to pull off this Fed scam. We will pick apart who is behind Powell's renovation case, and why a dollar collapse to 98.6 is just the beginning of the catastrophe. We will look behind the curtains of Davos, where the fate of your savings is being decided right now. Stay tuned. This is just the beginning. Do you think this is all accidental? Do you truly believe that on the very same day, January 20th, 2026, the Department of Justice attacks the Fed chair, Trump declares a trade war on Europe over Greenland, and silver smashes through its historic ceiling? No. In big politics, there are no coincidences. There are only well-planned special operations. And what we are seeing right now is the mechanics of a perfect storm. Let's crack this mechanism open. Let's see how the gears of this death machine for the dollar lock into one another. The crime of the century. Let's start with the Fed building renovation. The official DOJ version, the budget grew from 1.9 to 2.5 billion. Jerome Powell allegedly lied to Congress about the estimate. Sounds like bureaucratic boredom, right? But let's translate this into the language of real power. The Fed is the only institution that can say no to the president when he demands money printing. Powell said no. He held rates. He strangled inflation, and he became a bone in their throat. To remove a Fed chair, you need impeachment or a very good reason. Political disagreements won't cut it. But a criminal case for embezzlement of public funds? That is the golden key. That is the lockpick used to break down the doors of central bank independence. How does it work? Very simply. Step 1, you blow up a scandal over $600 million, a drop in the ocean for the U.S. budget. Step 2, you discredit Powell as an ineffective manager and potentially corrupt. Step 3, Powell either resigns or is suspended for the duration of the investigation. Step 4, an acting chair steps in, a loyalist from the White House team. Step 5, the printing press is switched to full power. This is called fiscal dominance, and the market smelled this blood instantly. That is precisely why on January 21st, Powell recorded that specific video where he said plainly, "This is punishment for refusing to follow presidential preferences." He is screaming to us in plain text, guys, they are seizing the bank, the war for resources. But seizing the bank is only half the battle. Where will this printed money go? It will go to war, a war for resources. Look at the map, Greenland. Most people see ice. The US administration sees the periodic table. Trump's ultimatum to Europe is not an improv act. It is cold calculation. The mechanism they launched on January 20th, 21 is unprecedented in its harshness. February 1st, 10% tariffs are imposed on goods from 8 EU countries, Germany, France, Italy, and others. June 1st, if Denmark does not sell Greenland, tariffs automatically skyrocket to 25%. Do you understand what this means? It is the severing of transatlantic ties. It is the end of globalization as we knew it. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent doesn't mince words. He talks about hemispheric security and preventing a kinetic war. When the Treasury Secretary talks about kinetic war, you better run to a bunker or into assets that cannot be destroyed by inflation. The trap for the crowd. And here the trap snaps shut for the crowd. A psychological trap that 90% of investors fall into. Look at what happens in people's heads. They read the news, trade war, Fed scandal. They get scared. What does a scared investor do out of old habit? They buy the dollar as a safe haven and U.S. treasuries. That worked for 40 years. But today, that reflex leads to financial suicide. Because today, the trend is sell America. Big capital, sovereign funds, Asian banks sees that the US is becoming toxic. They see political risk where there used to be reliability, and they are dumping the dollar. That is why the DXY crashed to 98.61. The dollar is no longer a shelter. The dollar is the epicenter of the explosion. And the crowd looks at the silver chart and says, oh, how expensive. 95s, it's a bubble. Must short, must wait for a pullback. They see overbought RSI levels. Yes, technically there is bearish divergence. Price is rising, indicators are falling. Textbooks say, sell. But in a paradigm shift, textbooks lie. This is the trap of normality. People try to apply peacetime rules to financial war conditions. While amateur traders look for short entries, trying to catch a $2 to $3 correction, whales are scooping up physical metal by the ton. Look at the ETF reports. Since the start of the year, silver fund yields have exceeded 25%, and a tsunami of money is flowing in. These aren't speculators. This is fear. Fear of being left holding cut paper. Industrial hunger. And this fear has a fundamental cause. Industrial hunger. Many forget that silver isn't just money. It is the blood of the modern economy. Without silver, there is no artificial intelligence. Have you heard about the AI boom? About the construction of giant data centers? Well, silver is the best conductor of electricity. It is irreplaceable in servers, in connectors, in cooling systems. Pan American Silver, one of the industry giants, just reported record mining, 22.8 million ounces for 2025. You'd think the market would be saturated? Hell no. The cost forecast, AISC, for 2026 rose to $15.75 than $18.25 per ounce. Production costs are rising. Inflation is devouring miners' profits. To open a new mine takes 10 years. But Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and the Pentagon need silver right now. We have a classic scissors scenario. Demand from AI and the military-industrial complex is vertical. Supply is limited by physics and geology. The dollar in which the price is denominated is falling into the abyss due to the attack on the Fed. The crowd waits for things to calm down, for Trump to make a deal, for Powell to be forgiven, for prices to return to normal. But there is no normal anymore. Europe has already stated the response will be unwavering. Denmark said sovereignty is not for sale. Lavrov pours oil on the fire, reminding everyone of the colonial past. No one is going to negotiate. The bets are placed on escalation. You are inside a historical moment. Those who are selling silver now to take profits are like the people who sold Bitcoin at $100, rejoicing that they doubled their investment. They don't understand the scale. A target of $100 per ounce is no longer a gold bug dream. It is the technical reality of the coming days. The market is in price discovery mode, searching for a new price. And that price will be shocking. But the most interesting part is ahead. We have dissected the mechanics, capture the Fed, print money, buy resources, inflation. We have dissected the trap, faith in the dollar, and waiting for a pullback. Now we need ironclad proof, numbers that cannot be disputed, facts that scream that the system is already broken. In the next part, I will show you the underbelly of the market. We will look at what is happening in London and Shanghai while New York sleeps. We will see the liquidity breaks that prove there isn't enough physical metal for everyone anymore. Get ready, the masks are off. Next, only facts. Iron, cold facts. You asked for proof? You wanted to see the smoking gun? Enough theory. Let's look at the numbers. Numbers hold no political allegiance. They don't lie to Congress, and they cannot be bribed with the promise of a promotion. I have a dry exchange report for the last 48 hours in front of me. To a layman, these are just columns of digits. To a professional, this is a chronicle of a catastrophe. Look at the spread. This is the difference between the day's high and low prices. On January 18th, this gap was a pathetic 20 cents. The market was asleep. Now look at January 20th and 21. The swing exceeded $3. Do you understand what that means? Volatility increased 15-fold in 2 days. This isn't just a nervous market. This is a market where liquidity has vanished. Market makers, the very guys obligated to ensure trading, are pulling their orders. They are afraid. In London, during the fixing, the procedure for setting the benchmark price, disruptions have already begun. There was a moment when the arbitrage between the spot physical market and COMEX futures simply broke. This is called backwardation on steroids. It means a real silver bar here and now costs more than a promise to deliver one in a month. The paper market is losing control over the physical one. And here is another nail in the coffin of the old system. Open the price chart. January 20th. The daily high. Different sources give different numbers. Some write 95.34, others 95.90. You might ask, how is that possible? Is the price not unified? In a normal world, yes. But we are no longer in a normal world. The spread in quotes indicates that the unified pricing system is shattering. There is one panic in Tokyo, another in London, and New York is trying to pretend everything is under control. But the most terrifying proof of the systemic failure didn't come from the exchange. It came from the real sector, Pan American Silver, PAAS, one of the mining titans. They reported record production for 2025, 22.8 million ounces. A victory, you'd think? Rejoice, bears? No, because the market didn't look at production. The market looked at costs. The AISC, all-in sustaining costs forecast for 2026, skyrocketed to a range of $15.75, $18.25 per ounce. This is an official admission. There will never be cheap silver again. Cost inflation, energy, wages, logistics has cemented the price floor. Even if speculators want to crash the price, the physical economy won't allow it. The mines will simply stop. Now, lift your head from the monitors. Look at the map of the world. What is happening with silver is just a symptom. The cause is the disintegration of the global order. We are seeing the domino effect in action. Domino number 1, Washington. The attack on Powell destroyed the myth of dollar independence. Investors realized the Fed is now just a printer in the Oval Office. Domino number 2, Greenland. This isn't economics anymore. This is high-voltage geopolitics. Trump has bet everything. Starting February 1st, 10% tariffs on goods from the EU. If there is no deal, by June 1st, tariffs rise to 25%. Key allies are under attack: Germany, France, Italy, Denmark. Do you understand the scale? The US is declaring an economic blockade on Europe for control of the Arctic. Europe's reaction was instantaneous. Ursula von der Leyen announced an unwavering response. It is a trade war between the West and the West. Domino number 3, Russia and the East. While the West gnaws at itself, Moscow and Beijing are making their moves. Lavrov has already called the U.S. claims on Greenland a colonial conquest. U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent speaks openly about the risk of kinetic war. In Asia, investors read this unambiguously. It's going to get hot. Asian markets have begun a mass dumping of American assets. The Sell America trend is gaining momentum. And here we are, January 21st, 2026. Silver is trading around $94. The dollar is lying in the dust at the 98.6 level. The system is taut as a string, ready to snap. The whole planet has frozen. Everyone is looking at the clock. 14:30 Central European Time, Davos. In a few hours, Donald Trump will take the podium at the World Economic Forum. This won't be just a speech. It will be either a declaration of peace or a declaration of war. Analysts give a 60% probability that he will escalate, that he will confirm the tariffs and attack the Fed again. If that happens, $96 per ounce will be cleared in seconds. We will see $100 before the week closes. But there is another scenario, the chaos scenario. If he announces confiscation, a withdrawal from NATO, or something even more radical, then forget technical analysis. Then, the panic buying of any real assets at any price begins. We are standing on the edge. Official U.S. statistics scream, everything is fine. Real commodity charts scream, run. In the final part, we will put this mosaic together. I will give you the forecast, the end game. We will see how the battle for the Fed ends. And most importantly, I will tell you what to do when the markets close and the ATMs stop dispensing cash. Because when the music stops, there won't be enough chairs for everyone. Do you think this is a local fire? Do you think that just because you don't live in Washington or Greenland, this won't touch you? Wake up. We are not just watching a crisis of a single country. We are watching the spine of the global financial system crack. Let's zoom out. Let's step away from the silver chart and look at the world map. What do we see? We see a domino effect that can no longer be stopped. Asia has already made its choice. While American investors are trying to figure out why their favorite tech stocks are shaking, Asian markets are sending an unambiguous signal: sell America. This isn't just a slogan, it is the new strategy of sovereign wealth funds. They see political risks where they used to see guarantees. Asian stocks are falling because global supply chains are snapping, but capital isn't flowing into the dollar like it used to. Capital is seeking shelter. And Europe. The old world is backed into a corner. Trump's ultimatum on Greenland is an economic gun to the temple of the European Union. 8 countries are in the crosshairs: Germany, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. This is the heart of the European economy. If 10% tariffs go into effect on February 1st, it will be a shock. But if they rise to 25% by June, as the White House threatens, it will be a collapse of European exports. European leaders are in a panic. In Davos, Ursula von der Leyen is trying to save face, promising an unwavering response. But the markets know the truth. Europe has no good moves. A trade war with the US against the backdrop of an internal crisis is a perfect storm for the euro. And when the world's two main reserve currencies, the dollar and the euro, become toxic simultaneously, where does an investor run? The answer is obvious: into assets that have no president, no parliament, and no printing press, into gold and silver. But there is one more player just waiting for Washington to make a mistake: Russia. Lavrov's statement that Greenland is a colonial conquest by Denmark was not accidental. It is a signal. The Arctic is no longer a zone of peace. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent openly states that control over the island is needed to prevent a kinetic war. Do you understand what that means? Markets are pricing in not just inflation into silver. They are pricing in the risk of military conflict between great powers. The end game. What happens next? How will this game play out in the coming hours and days? All eyes are now fixed on Davos. 14:30 Central European Time, Trump's speech. This is the moment of truth. Analysts who were asleep yesterday are now sketching out 3 scenarios, and none of them promise peace for the dollar. Scenario 1, probability, 60%. Escalation. Trump takes the podium and confirms the tariffs. He attacks Powell and the Fed again, demanding low rates. Market reaction, instant and harsh. Silver will smash through $96 on massive volume. The dollar will continue its fall because investors will realize the brakes are gone. The target by the end of the week is $9,800 per ounce. This will be a parabolic rise that incinerates anyone holding a short position. Scenario 2, probability, 30%. False hope. Trump softens his rhetoric. He hints at negotiations. Market reaction. The market will exhale. Speculators will start taking profits. The price might pull back to $88, $90. Warning, do not be fooled. This is a trap. The fundamental reasons for the rise haven't gone anywhere. The metal deficit remains. The attack on the Fed continues. Cost inflation, AISC, is already above 15s, creating a reinforced concrete floor for the price. This pullback would be a gift for institutionals who will buy up every last ounce. Scenario 3, probability, 10%, chaos, unexpected measures, withdrawal from NATO, asset confiscation, anything. Market reaction. Silver flies past $100 instantly. Trading halts with limit ups. This is the scenario of total loss of control. But no matter which scenario plays out tonight, the long-term trend is already broken. We have entered the era of fiscal dominance. The government will spend, and the central bank will print. This is the law of wartime, and in this time, your dollars, euros, and yen are melting like ice in Greenland. Silver at $95 isn't expensive. It is cheap if you understand what will happen to the purchasing power of money in a year. The gold bugs, who were laughed at for decades, turned out to be right. The $100 target has stopped being fantasy. Now it is simply the next stop for a train with no brakes. Listen to me carefully. The system you are used to is dying. It won't vanish tomorrow morning, but it is already terminally ill. The criminal case against the Fed chair is the diagnosis. The dollar falling below 98.6 is the death throes. They want you to look at office renovations. They want you to discuss political gossip. They want you to sit in cash and hope prices fall. Do not make this mistake. While the crowd panics, smart money acts. They are buying fire insurance while the house is just starting to smoke. Silver isn't just a metal. It is freedom. Freedom from the madness of the printing press. Freedom from geopolitical games. Freedom from counterparty risk. Right now, when volatility is off the charts, when spreads are widening and bankers are nervous, this is your time. Don't look at the price in dollars. The dollar is a fading reality. Look at the value. Look at what will remain in your hands when the digits in bank accounts turn to dust. The spring is coiled to the limit. The shot will ring out at any second. The only question is, whose side will you be on when the smoke clears? Think, decide, act, end of transmission.